Hello everyone, Michael Breddy here from Breddy Musical Instruments. This is day 3 of the 5-day Ocarina batch unveiling marathon as part of my lead up to my participation in the Boston Early Music Festival 2025 exhibition. As of this video, the exhibition will be happening next week from next Wednesday all the way through next Saturday. And through that exhibition, I will have a total of 19 ocarinas in total on display for people to try and purchase right in person. That consists of a range of 8 batches of ocarinas, so almost a full year's worth of production of ocarinas for me across various keys, tons of different woods, a lot of character and personality in the ocarinas. So it's going to be a really exciting opportunity to share these works with other attendees and people interested in fine woodwinds. So for this video, I'm going to be diving into batch number 9 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas. So this batch consists of 3 ocarinas. And over the course of this video, I'm going to be diving into the background and development of these ocarinas, the wood selection for each, looking at the tonal characteristics and nuances of each, give some sound samples of each, and then a full playing demonstration at the end. So this batch is a pretty neat batch. It consists of my alto line, and there's a little bit of a difference between the ocarinas in terms of some of the aesthetic and the tuning. So the serial numbers for this batch are 15, 16, and 17. Now 15 and 17 on the ends here, these are tuned to the key of G4, whereas number 16 in the middle here is actually tuned to the key of G sharp 4. And I will get into a little bit of that a little later when I'm explaining each of the ocarinas. So these ocarinas are made from 3 woods for 15 and 17 and 4 woods for number 16. So jumping right into this, I'm going to start out with number 15. So the foundation of this ocarina build revolves around the body, and for this particular set I decided to go with a really beautiful deep red Brazilian bloodwood. When I was looking through the wood supply of one of my favorite suppliers, I noticed they had several new boards of just this absolutely insanely deep strawberry red Brazilian bloodwood, and I knew that I had to grab those boards for an ocarina build, because finding bloodwood this vibrant and deep is not easy, and these just popped out immediately that I knew I had to get it. They also ended up being the perfect thickness, so I didn't have to actually laminate these up, so it gives me a nice solid rich bloodwood body. So looking at the base wood for the ocarina, so this is the Brazilian bloodwood. Moving it in the light, you can see the really beautiful chatoyance in the grain as the light dances through the grain as it moves. Just really, really, really fantastic wood. Again, incredibly deep color, really rich color, a lot of vibrancy in it. Really fantastic wood. Bloodwood is really heavy, it's really hard, it's really dense. It polishes to an insane polish. This is actually one of my favorite woods to finish and polish up, because it just takes such a beautiful, easy shine to it. It's a pretty heavy ocarina for wood for the key. The wood ocarinas are not necessarily heavy in general, but compared to the other G4 size ocarinas that I've made, the bloodwood based ones are definitely heavier than average. So it gives it a nice bit of heft to it, a nice bit of weight, and gives it a really bright tone with some really great projection. So I'll get into that more as I go into the sound samples. But a really, really beautiful classic wood, and a really fantastic wood selection for this particular batch of ocarinas. So pairing it with the top, I decided to go a little bit of a unconventional route with this wood pairing, and I decided to go with Zebrawood for the tops of these. So you can see the Zebrawood here used for the top of the ocarina. So really nice, beautiful banding of the Zebrawood. I think it pairs really nicely with the contrast of the bloodwood, especially viewing it from the side. You can see that beautiful yellowish brown banding with the deep red. Just a really, I think, a really unusual combination and a really beautiful combination for the ocarina. I am planning on making a solid Zebrawood ocarina set. I do plan on making a solid bloodwood ocarina set. But for this one, I kind of wanted to explore a little bit of a different contrasting dynamic for the aesthetic of these ocarinas. So it's a little bit unconventional. Not everyone's going to like this pairing, but I think it's kind of a unique pairing that ends up working pretty nicely, especially with the chatoyance of the bloodwood, the chatoyance in the right there, the chatoyance in the Zebrawood as it moves. Plays together really nicely, having that combination of the red and the golden type brown hues gives it for a really interesting look. Finally, we have the standard aromatic cedar mouthpiece, which is pretty classic for most of my ocarinas, for my standard batch stuff. So now getting into the tone of this ocarina, I'm going to just play up and down the scale so you can hear the full range of this ocarina. So this is the scale for number 15. So really bright ocarina, really fantastic projection. Being wood, it does have that mellowness to it still, but compared to some of the other ocarinas that I've made, it does have a little bit more brightness to it, from the bloodwood and also the Zebrawood, both being pretty hard woods, but the bloodwood definitely being super dense and heavy. Really adds to that nice brightness and projection. Beautifully clear tone across the range. All three of these actually ended up being a particularly strong set of ocarinas in terms of tone. So they have really rich, strong tone across the range. Really clear highs, no airiness in it at all. So really fantastic ocarina that you can push a little bit harder if you like to go a little bit louder for the ocarinas. One thing I do want to mention with bloodwood, compared to other exotic hardwoods, it does have a little bit more tendency to and proneness to cracking due to extreme temperature shifts and gradients. So like with all my wooden ocarinas, you're not going to want to go outside on a cold day, cold autumn day, cold winter day, and just play them, just because for any fine woodwinds, you don't really want to expose it to the warm breath on the inside and cold air on the outside. That's just going to lead to problems all around the board, either windway warping or changes or cracking of an ocarina. My ocarinas are fully sealed on the inside and the outside, so they never need to oil them. You never need to worry about finishing them. They are pretty stabilized in that regard. However, just for general fine woodwind care, just be mindful, not to play them in really cold temperatures. But that goes without saying for any ocarina, even for very stable woods. It's best to play them, in the appropriate setting. Playing it in too hot of an environment isn't really much of an issue, but playing it in too cold is generally something you probably want to avoid for just any woodwinds in general, whether it's wooden ocarinas or recorders, stuff like that, to be mindful of. If an ocarina ever does crack or develop an issue, that's really not an issue. I can repair the stuff really easily, refinish it really easily, so you can reach out to me at any time if there's any issues ever. There shouldn't really ever be an issue, but again, just be sure to take care of your instruments like you would for any fine woodwind. Now, moving on to the second ocarina in this batch. So this is number 16. So like I mentioned at the beginning, this one's a little bit different. This is tuned to the key of G sharp 4. And this one actually has 4 woods instead of 3 woods. So again, we have the really beautiful iridescent deep red Brazilian bloodwood. Just again, really incredible wood. This has a thin maple striping. This again is only on this ocarina. The other 2 ocarinas do not have this maple striping, but there's a thin maple striping between the top wood and the bottom wood. And then finally, another beautiful Zebrawood top for this, and then aromatic cedar mouthpiece. So kind of a little bit of difference in the aesthetic between these ocarinas. So number 15 has very fine, much finer lines of Zebrawood running horizontal, whereas number 16 has much wider, kind of more wild bands. Both have a nice, unique look to them. Both kind of have a unique feel. So it really depends on your aesthetic. Now, the reason why this is a G4, sharp 4 as opposed to a G4 is when I was originally tuning this whole batch, I ended up rebuilding all 3 ocarinas just because the first time I got through the whole voicing process, I glued the mouthpiece, I glued the top, and those really pesky second harmonic dynamic effects that I've mentioned in prior videos propped up, and they were really nasty at the top end, so much so that I thought that it just absolutely ruins the ocarina. So I decided to rip the tops off of everything and redo all 3 of them. And in the process of this particular one, removing the top ended up removing a little bit more of the bloodwood, so it thinned it down a little bit. So to build up the thickness, I ended up adding a little bit of extra maple there to bring it back up to thickness. In the process, I also ended up having to completely redo the mouthpiece. So the other 2, the mouthpiece for the bottom stayed the same, but for this one, I actually sawed off the entire front and redid that for the process. So it was a lot of extra work. These were actually meant to be revealed months ago, but because of the delay in the voicing process and me wanting to get it right and really refine it, I've ended up delaying this ocarina set for a number of months. So I'm pleased that it's finally actually getting out there. Now, in the voicing process of this, I also found that this played a little bit extra sharp at the same breath pressure of the other 2, and it was enough that I figured I could readjust the tuning of this to bring it into tune better with a proper breath curve at G sharp 4. So what I did was I enlarged the subhole just a tiny bit to raise the entire fundamental up, and then I retuned the sound holes of this to bring everything up in terms of the proper breath curve, and have it distributed out well for the G sharp 4 tuning. So that's just a little bit of a difference between these 2, between this ocarina and the other ocarinas in this batch. All of them are really beautiful playing ocarinas. The G4s are really common tuning. The G and the C are some of those common ocarina keys out there. G sharp is pretty unusual. I've made a couple of G sharps, definitely with batch number 2 with the Jatoba and Bloodwood. Those were also G sharp 4s. So this is another G sharp 4. So every once in a while I might find that a G4 plays a little bit better as a G sharp 4, so I retune it as that. So to give a listen to the tone of this ocarina, I'll just go up and down the scale again so you can get a reference for the entire scale. So this is number 16. So like number 15, this has beautifully clear tone, no airiness at the top, really strong tone, both at the low end and the high end, really nicely, evenly rising breath curve up the scale. Both have the same level of back pressure, so it's kind of like a medium level back pressure. Starts out a little bit medium low at the bottom and kind of progresses up nicely towards the top with a medium breath pressure. It can be pushed also a little bit harder at the higher end, so these offer themselves as kind of a little bit nicely dynamic ocarinas with really bright and clear tone across the range. Finally, we're going to get into the last ocarina of this batch. This is number 17. So like the first one, number 15, this has 3 woods. So you have, again, the really beautiful chatoyant deep red bloodwood. You have the beautiful zebrawood, and again, note for this zebrawood, you have really nice light movement in that grain, so there's still that chatoyance rippling through the grain as you move it in the light, which is really cool to see. And then you have the aromatic cedar mouthpiece. One extra thing I do want to mention that I know that talking with a lot of ocarinists in various chats is that there's a lot of people that really love bloodwood, paduk, and purple heart ocarinas, but they're also concerned that those colors will fade or brown over time. And that is true to some degree, but it also depends on how the wood is treated and how you care for the instrument. So if you freshly cut a piece of bloodwood or paduk or purple heart, for example, and you just let it sitting out in the light, in the air, no seal or anything, it's going to darken. It can brown over time depending on the wood. If it's already a little bit more brownish tinge, it'll be more noticeable, versus if you have a really vibrant orange or vibrant red or purple, you won't notice a browning as much, but that can occur. However, if the wood is fully sealed with layers of varnish or something like I do with mine, relatively soon after final sanding, which I do pretty immediately after the final sanding, I go right into the varnishing for these. That's going to first prevent oxidation of the wood. So it's going to help protect the wood from the oxidation and really help keep those vibrant colors much more than an unsealed piece, or a piece that's just finished with oil that you have to oil over time, because the oil doesn't prevent the oxidation nearly as nicely as a fully sealed varnish. The second thing is light exposure. So UV exposure from the sun will degrade really any color. If you have anything exposed to sunlight over time, it's going to fade it. So if you have these out on a shelf and there's sunlight directly hitting it from a window, you might see some dulling of the color over time. If it's on the shelf and it's just sitting there and there's no direct sunlight on it, like beaming down on it, it really shouldn't be an issue. The bloodwood, paduk, the purple heart will naturally darken over time as it ages, but with the varnish sealing and with proper care keeping it out of direct sunlight during long-term storage, you should be able to enjoy the really rich colors of this wood and those other woods that I mentioned for a very long time. So that really shouldn't be an issue with proper care of the wood and the instruments in general. So going over the sound and tone of this ocarina, I'm just going to play up and down the scale to give a reference for what this one sounds like. So this is the scale of number 17. So again, like the other two, you've got really bright, clear tone across the range, really nice, bold projection, classic of like a really heavy bloodwood type ocarina. The tone and response of this one is a little bit different than the other two. I would say the back pressure for this one is a little bit higher, and with that higher back pressure, with the given dimensions and windway alignments that I do for my ocarinas, that does lead to a little bit more textured tone. So it has a little bit more back pressure, but you have a little bit more texture to the tone, whereas the other ones are a little bit lower back pressure, a little bit more open tone. All three of them still really bright. All three of them still have great projection. I think these ones, with that more open tone, you can push with that openness a little bit more. This one can be pushed too, but the tone and response is going to be a little bit different. It's kind of hard to describe, but playing them in person and getting a feel for the nuances between them, there is a subtle difference between them. They're all beautiful playing ocarinas, just again, a little difference between each of them as they are handmade and hand voiced. One final thing, just as a purely aesthetic note, the grain of this is running vertically along the ocarina, whereas the other ocarinas, they are horizontal. So you actually might notice that the grain is pretty much the same for these two. This was actually cut from the same exact board. And this one was actually a different board. This was actually from the first set of Zebrawood that I had. And I also have that Zebrawood for another upcoming ocarina batch that I'm going to be unveiling at the end of the week. These ones were a separate batch of Zebrawood. So there's kind of three different contrasting looks in terms of the Zebrawood, depending on what your aesthetic preference is. But again, all really, really cool ocarinas, I would say, and a little bit of a different wood combination than you might typically see. So that wraps up kind of the overview for these ocarinas. Now to get into the musical demonstration, I've decided for this performance I'm going to do a very simple, very abridged rendition of the Beatles' Hey Jude. So please enjoy this shortened rendition of Hey Jude on one of these ocarinas. So that wraps up this video for batch number 9 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas from Brady Musical Instruments. Again, this is day 3 of 5 of the batch unveiling marathon for the Boston Early Music Festival 2025 being held next week in Boston, where I'll have these and a whole bunch of other ocarinas on display for people to try and purchase directly in person. As I mentioned in prior videos, if you're interested in any of these ocarinas and you can't attend the event, feel free to send me a direct message either through email or through various social media that I'm on with the serial number of the ocarina that you're interested in, and I will put you on the reserve list for that ocarina, meaning that the attendees at the exhibition will have first dibs on the ocarinas directly in display in person. However, if the particular ocarina that you are interested in doesn't sell by the end of the event, I will contact you on the reserve list in the order of first come, first serve, and we can go from there for the ocarina. And if you happen to be not interested in that ocarina, then the next person down the line will have an opportunity to purchase that ocarina. So if you're interested in one ocarina, or if you're interested in multiple ocarinas from any of the batches that I've been unveiling this week, just let me know and I'll put you on that reserve list. Again, this batch is a really cool batch. It's a bloodwood Zebrawood mix, which is a little bit unconventional, but I think, again, the golden brown and the reds really pair nicely. And this is a really, really fantastic bloodwood in particular, really deep, vibrant, rich red that you don't see quite as often. So really cool to see that in an instrument. Really strong, clear tone ocarinas with great brightness and projection. Again, going back to that really heavy, hard bloodwood body. So a pretty cool ocarina all around. One that I really enjoy playing and has really nice clarity to it. So if you're interested in following more with these developments, you can follow along on the Brady Musical Instruments Instagram page and Facebook page, as well as seeing new video updates here on the YouTube channel. Again, I've got 2 more batch unveilings for this week, so keep an eye out for the video postings for tomorrow and the next day. I still got a couple more really cool ocarina builds to share. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.